Hello, and welcome back to Seeing Things Differently. My name is Cece, and today I am joined by the wonderful Beth, who has an amazing podcast about FTD. So, Beth, would you like to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so the initial idea for the podcast came about, it was in May last year, May 2024, and it was following my mum's FTD diagnosis in February 2024. The reason I wanted to do it is because once we got the diagnosis, I just felt so incredibly alone. It was such an isolating experience. I felt like nobody out there would know what I'm going through or understand what I was feeling. From this awful experience, I just had this overwhelming urge to kind of try and do something positive. And I thought me putting my family's dementia story, dementia journey out there, hopefully by sharing it will help other people. So I thought I do podcasts because I work in radio. So audio is my bread and butter. So I thought, why not do a podcast? The first season went live earlier this year in March, so March 2025. And we just wrapped up season two. We've had some really good feedback, nice feedback. And I kind of said, if the podcast just helps one person out there, one other person going through this, then
Yeah.
it was all worth it.
Yeah, I think we've kind of come into this in a similar way, actually, because obviously my dad had PCA. I did really notice how much I felt like I was struggling because I didn't know where to look to get help. Teachers at school, other health professionals, it almost feels like you're taking on the job of having to educate them before you can even explain what it is that you actually need from them. And so, yeah, similarly to you and your wonderful podcast, I thought, let me set up this channel so as I can kind of almost for me as well process some of what's happening. And as you said, hopefully, if just one person finds this helpful, then we've done a good job of hopefully making someone feel less alone in this experience. And I wonder from your side if you could talk a little more about what were some of the first things that you noticed with your mum and how did you see that shift of you becoming a carer for her?
So the initial symptoms started in 2021. Now, of course, hindsight is such a wonderful thing. It probably started a couple of years earlier, but it's only when you look back you kind of realise. But the real symptoms started in 2021. And my mum had always been a massive chatterbox. She loved to talk. Like, I'd be barely through the front door when I went to mum and dad's house, and she'd just be chatting at me. I'm like, Mum, let me get in, take my shoes off, and make a brew. But she became a lot more quiet. There wasn't
Right.
much conversation there. But because we were going through the pandemic, I didn't really think much of it to begin with because I was like, she's just sat in this house 24/7, 7 days a week. It's just her
Mm.
and my dad.
Yeah.
She's not got anything to tell me really. And then as time went on, her personality seemed to change as well. So
Yeah.
my mum had always been such a lovely, kind woman. She wouldn't say a bad thing about anybody. And she made a couple of remarks. So you'd be out with her and she
Mhm.
might spot someone and she'd go, look at her over there. Like,
Right.
what?
Which was out of character for her. Yeah.
Completely out of character. And I'd be like, what's wrong with her?
Yeah.
And she'd like pull faces.
Mm.
And I remember just being quite taken aback by it because that was not my mum. But
Yeah.
again, I just put it down. So I was like, well, she's now turned 60. Maybe she's just getting to that point where she's I don't use the word cranky old woman, but maybe she's getting that little bit older now. Maybe she doesn't
Yeah.
want to hold back as much.
Yeah, and as you said,
And
it had been a difficult time with everyone being stuck at home with COVID because I do think largely people forgot how to be in a social setting.
Mhm.
And so a lot of it wasn't rudeness, it was just simply, I've just been in my own bubble for too long. So I guess that must have made it even harder for you to tell whether something was going on or not.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, dementia at that point had not crossed my mind. I was
Yeah,
thinking more mental health issues. The pandemic did a number on me. I remember I had to go to therapy during the pandemic because
same.
being,
Yeah,
being trapped in a house 24/7 really did a number on me. So I was in therapy for it.
yeah.
So I was like, maybe, my mum's mental health is suffering too. And then as we progressed into 2022, again, all of these symptoms just kind of got worse. I remember one time, and again, to somebody who didn't know my mum, you might not think twice about it, but I remember being in like a social setting and I was sat on, it was a christening actually.
Hmm.
And we were at the like reception afterwards, like the party bit. And I remember being sat at a table, and my mum was sat next to me with one of her friends. And I remember she just looked at me. She went, "Oh yeah, our Beth. She's got really fine hair, nothing like mine." And so if somebody else might have said that, you might not think twice about it. But my mum to turn around and go, "Yeah, she's got really fine hair, our Beth." It's just not my mum. It's just not in my
Yeah.
mum's character. I remember looking at her thinking, "It's not
Yeah,
that
that's
bad."
nice. Thanks, Mum.
Like, cheers. And then in the September, she went away on holiday, and she went away for 2 weeks, and she went away for one of her best friend's 60th birthdays.
Hmm.
And there was a large group of them. There's a lot of people on this holiday who my mum knew, but she'd not seen for a long time.
Right.
And it was on this holiday when a couple of people who my dad hadn't seen for a number of months pulled my dad aside
Right.
and spoke to him. They said, and one of the women on this holiday works with people who live with dementia.
I see.
And she said, "I don't want to alarm you,
Mm.
but there's certain things I've seen in Jill that make me suspect,
Yeah.
or at least please go and find out, please go and investigate, because she's showing some signs and symptoms
Yeah.
that could be dementia." Now, of course, it might not
Yeah.
be, but I'd check sooner rather than later.
Yeah. It almost feels like if you didn't end up coming across somebody who had experience with dementia, and particularly for the rare forms, that rare form of dementia, how long would you actually have to wait to figure out what's going on? Because with Dad, it wasn't that other people noticed, because obviously his posterior cortical atrophy is more visual symptoms. So it's a lot more internalized, and it's almost harder for us to know if he's managing or not. And like most people at the start of their dementia journey, he can present as quite fine and seem very normal and functional. And it was even after going through the dementia testing protocols and everything and having these assessments, they still told him it's either your eyesight or it's stress and anxiety. And it is only because one doctor kind of noticed on his ACE where he'd drawn the clock wrong, that looked a little bit odd and reminded her of another patient she'd seen. She then pulled my mum aside, had a chat with her about, is Dad able to dress himself? Which she's thinking, yeah, of course he can. Like, he got dressed here today. But actually, he was having a bit of difficulty with buttons, not knowing if like patterns went together. And that was really out of character for him. He was a very stylish man. Seeing that he's now struggling with these things, it was very odd. But of course, you're being told, oh, it's probably just stress. Or in your case, it's just COVID and we've been inside. And there's so many easy ways to overlook it until
Mm-hmm.
you come across that one person who actually points out the information that you need. And I don't know if whether for you it felt like a relief or panic, or would you like to talk a little about when that suggestion was made to you guys?
Yeah, so to be honest, it was a little bit of relief that somebody else had seen it,
Mm,
because I remember voicing my concerns to my dad, and I wouldn't want to say he brushed me off,
right.
but I think, of course, it's a very different relationship, your husband versus your daughter. I don't think he wanted to accept it, and I don't think he could see it either. And that's not a bad thing on my dad, but again, we're in COVID, and he's with my mum day in and day out,
Yeah.
24/7, 7 days a week. Whereas for me, I was having breaks in between seeing her, so I could pick up on these little changes in her, these subtle
Hmm.
little things that perhaps my dad couldn't, because he's
Yeah.
with her all the time. Just to mention, like my mum, saying very similar to your dad, it was like she could put a mask on
Yeah.
for people in certain situations. Like I remember when we finally got to the doctors, and she sat in the doctor's office, and it was like she could put this mask on, and the doctor went, "So how are you, Jill? How are you doing?"
Yeah.
"I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine." And I'm sat next to like, you're not
Yeah.
fine. There's
Yeah.
something wrong with you, mum, and we need to find out what it is. Like,
Yeah.
it was just so frustrating. But then you feel bad being frustrated, because it's like,
Yeah.
she can't help it. If that was me, I'd be terrified of finding out what's going on.
Yeah.
you go into it and then you find out that dementia is so much more
Yeah.
than what I'd ever imagined it would be.
Yeah, I
Like,
think often I have to correct people that it is not an old age memory problem. There are so many different initial symptoms. I mean, you've spoken about personality changes. With FTD, people can have issues with language. That looks very, very different from even my dad, who, similar age, except he's having problems with his spatial perception. So he can't, pick up a cup very well or put it down in the right place without knocking everything over. And so those just two of the rare dementias already are kind of opposite ends of the spectrum for each other. So it's no good saying, oh, if you're forgetting things, it might be dementia. There are so many other things that you almost have to look out for as well.
mhm.
Thank you so much for joining me on here today, Beth. I feel like this has been a lovely conversation, and hopefully, other people can take from it as well these different experiences and start to see what the different symptoms of dementia look like. So, thank you so, so much. And please do go and check out Beth's podcast as well and give her a follow on TikTok and Instagram too.
Thank you so much, Cece. It's been wonderful joining you.